Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Hassan, and sitting in for Izzy Gutierrez today is the one and only Jeremy Tache. He's, you know him from Miami Heat games and the Dan Le Batard Show.
Hey, Amin. It's good to be here. I showed up with my glasses so that I could look as smart as possible, and I'm ready for some highly intelligent basketball conversation.
Yeah, this is where we're at. Highly intelligent with Jeremy Tache. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Hell yeah. Jeremy, I don't know. Have you been watching any March Madness this weekend?
Yeah, I actually...
Trick question. Nobody cares about your March Madness takes because I don't know if you know this, Jeremy. The playoffs have started in the NBA.
You know, I didn't know that. I guess it sort of feels that way, but thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, no, the playoffs have already started. Look, we're down to the last pretty much 3 weeks of the regular season, and the games have all taken on this added level of importance because it's easy to see how they impact playoff seeding. There are all these races going on all across from top to bottom in both conferences. And so we're going to check in on the tightest seeding battles in the league, starting with the race for two in the West, Jeremy Tache. The Nuggets are one game behind Izzy Gutierrez's Houston Rockets. Nuggets beat the Rockets last night, 116-111. The Rockets were fully healthy, and the Nuggets did not have Nikola Jokić. And this was a massive missed opportunity for the Rockets to bury Denver. They were up 1-0 in the season standings, basically in the head-to-head. That's the tiebreaker. Is the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Now it's 1-1 instead of being 2-zip and a done deal. Now it's 1-1, and there's another opportunity for these two teams to play each other. And that opportunity comes on April 13th, the last day of the season. You gave the Nuggets life. So, Jeremy, I ask you, who is going to be the 2 seed?
This is a great question because I would have said Houston running away before last night. Like the fact that the Nuggets were able to take down Houston without Nikola Jokić, like that's the huge shock because they have just not been, nor should they be, the same team without him, one of the greatest weapons that we've ever seen in the sport. But to me, I thought Houston was playing so well. This seemed cut and dry that now that you give Denver a little bit of life, the interesting element in all of this is sort of different than in the Eastern Conference where you can set yourself up for who you're going to play in that first round matchup. This is just a race to get potential home court advantage in that second round. To me, I see a world where Denver can now get there because it's just a 1-game difference. And like you said, it sort of breathes life into them where, hey, we can go get this now. We can take what's ours and be able to have home court advantage in that second round series in a way that will matter against a young team in Houston.
You know, it's funny. The theme that's going to be going through a lot of these games that we're going to talk about is missed opportunities, right? Because not just, hey, if you win this, it's whatever. It's you should have won this. We're going to see that in a lot of these races where there's, hey, fate, the basketball gods gave you a huge layup here. Look, we're going to take Jokić off the board. You've got a 2-game lead on them. You win. It's a 3-game lead. You win the season series outright. So that makes all the hurdles almost insurmountable for Denver. And everything that Houston had just laid out for them, all they had to do was show up. They dropped the ball. They used a playoff rotation. Only 8 guys played last night. And what ends up happening is you lose the game. The lead, instead of 3 games or 2 games, it's now 1 game. And now the season series is up for grabs. And so they're not the only ones that kind of dropped the ball because the Lakers might have taken themselves out of the 2 seed race after getting annihilated by the Bulls, 146-115 over the weekend. Luka and LeBron returned for this game. It did not matter. Luka had 34. LeBron had 17. That wasn't enough to stop Kobe White, who had 36 points. Matas Buzelis had an incredible game. Josh Giddey had an incredible game. And now the Lakers are 2 games behind the 2 seed with the 5th toughest remaining schedule. Is this rust for the Lakers, Jeremy, or is this just a sign of, look, they're not as good as they probably think they are?
Yeah, I think things maybe got a little overinflated when Luka first got there and everything looked like it would work kind of right away. You know, maybe a little bit different than what goes on with the Warriors, who I know we'll talk about in a bit, but with the Lakers, I think that we all anticipated that this would be a move that made them better in the long run, weren't sure about the short run. Obviously, there's reason to believe that they could beat anybody with those two players, but this is probably a more accurate representation of who they are, which is that occasionally they're going to lose to a team that should be inferior. A team in the Bulls, by the way, that's playing pretty good basketball.
Look, I'm not the one to bring up blasphemy, but they're playing a lot better since Disturbed almost burned down the banners at the United Center, right? This is, well, I don't know. This was last week at some point. Disturbed had their concert. There's a lot of pyrotechnics. And there, right there, you see the hallowed 6 banners that Michael Jordan put up painstakingly by hand, getting damaged. They're going to have to be taken in for repairs. The Bulls, as we said, 3-1 since that happened right there. Now, Jeremy, the Heat have lost 10 of their last 11, 10 in a row until that win against Charlotte last night. Does Disturbed need to come play Kaseya Center and maybe spark up?
I don't know. I'll take Disturbed. I'll take Korn. I'll take any of those bands if it means that vibes can change a little bit for the Miami Heat down the stretch. Because look, they're gonna be a play-in team unless they lose every single game for the rest of the year. They're gonna be a play-in team, so they're gonna be trying to compete to win and get a playoff spot. And if they're going up against the Bulls in the United Center in that first game, I don't know how that's gonna go. So they need to catch them on that trip. Or for the Bulls, it sort of feels like this might be like for the Chicago Cubs, it was the curse of the Billy Goat. So this is sort of anti-curse of the Billy Goat in terms of Disturbed. I think it might work out for him. I'm just glad you knew what kind of band Disturbed was. I'd never heard of them before. I've heard of Korn though. I started making connections after you said Korn. Slipknot.
I've heard of Slipknot. Yeah, all right. Yeah, a couple of these. I never heard their music though. So why does the 2 seed matter in the West? Right. Well, the 2 seed plays someone coming out of the play-in, right? Whereas the 3 seed has to play the 6 seed. So I bring up the next race, the race for 6 in the West. Right now, the Warriors currently hold 6. The T-Wolves are half game back. The Clippers are a full game back. All 3 games are 8-2. All 3 teams, are 8-2 in their last 10 games. So it's not really a walk in the park either way. Now, the Clippers had a chance to steal a game against the Thunder last night without Chet Holmgren, without Jalen Williams. They had the lead down the stretch. And then Alex Caruso hits a big 3 to go up ahead. And then we get a kind of mix up at the end with Harden and Kawhi Leonard, not a whole lot of organization. And the Thunder escape with a 103-101 injury. Meanwhile, Steph Curry on Friday had a nasty fall against the Raptors, a game that was a lot closer than it should have been for the Warriors. He gets hurt. They end up losing him. They're on a road trip. They lose against Atlanta, which I think we would all say is an inferior opponent. And this was a tweet from Shams Charania about that. So despite there being no structural damage, quote, after the MRI, Curry's going to be on this road trip, but we don't know how many games he's going to miss. Can Jimmy keep the Warriors in the 6th seed if Steph has to miss time, Jeremy?
Can he? Yes. Will he? I'm not so sure, because if I were the Warriors and I were Jimmy Butler, I'd be doing the same thing I've done for the last several seasons of Jimmy Butler, which is maintaining my body to be in the best possible space going into the postseason. And I know, obviously, Jimmy missed a ton of games earlier in the year with all of the suspensions with the Miami Heat, but this is the type of guy who always wants to be at his physical peak going into the postseason. And if I'm Golden State and I see the type of team that I've been when both Steph and Jimmy are healthy, that would be my priority over trying to get that 6th seed. And I know anything can happen on any given night. You could lose a play-in game to one of these really good teams that are going to end up being play-in teams in the West. At the same time, I'm trying to control what I can control once I get there in this scenario. So I'm not sure he will, if Steph misses a significant amount of time, be able to carry the Warriors, considering they only have a half game lead on Minnesota and a full game lead on the Clippers, who are both very good teams. Who
do you like out of those 3 teams?
Honestly, I mean, so I think the Warriors are the best team when they're at their best, but I love the Clippers and the way that they're playing. And maybe that's my own personal bias of having just seen them in person here a couple weeks ago in Miami. but I'm really blown away by the team that they've turned themselves into. And if I'm any of those top seeds in the West, like they're the team that I'd want to play the least, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy because all three of those teams can be pretty dastardly defensively. And it's not the walk in the park that you want if you're one of these higher seeds. If you're a 2 seed or a 3 seed, you got to see one of these in the first round. That just portends for a very long and excruciating playoff run for either of those teams. For what it's worth, I still think the Warriors grab that 6. I think the Nuggets grab 2. I think you get Warriors Rockets in the first round, and then we get Nuggets Warriors in the second round. But again, it's not a walk in the park for any of these teams by any stretch of the imagination. We mentioned the Clippers, a golden opportunity to gain ground on the Warriors and, to again announce themselves because they're playing against the Thunder that was not 100%. And instead, the Thunder end up winning. And that has implications, Jeremy, because the Thunder are on a different race for the number 1 overall seed. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If they get to the finals and they see the Cleveland Cavaliers, as it stands today, the Thunder have home court advantage. And that is due to 2 things. One, the Thunder obviously have been awesome with wins like last night by the skin of their teeth. But 2, the Cavs had a 4-game losing streak last week after winning 16 games in a row, a franchise record, 4 in a row until they righted the ship against the Utah Jazz, nature's common cure for the losing streak. The losses came to the Magic, the Clippers, the Kings, and the Suns. So hardly world beaters. Obviously, those last, all 4 of those teams are teams playing for something, but it's not like you lost to the Rockets and the Grizzlies and the Celtics in there. Right. Donovan Mitchell said he was enjoying the losing streak, saying, quote, "I'm kind of a sicko, so I enjoy this. You don't grow without going through things." So now the Thunder are 2 games ahead of the Cavs for the best record in the league. Jeremy, does any of this matter?
Does it matter? Probably not, because ultimately the best team normally wins. But look, having home court in the NBA Finals seems like something that you would want, especially if you're one of these teams like Oklahoma City or Cleveland, where it seems like your home court advantage is real. It seems like your fans truly get into this in a passionate way. If either of those teams make a run to the finals, their fan bases are going to be going absolutely nuts. So to be able to play those first couple of games at home and be able to take theoretically a 2-0 lead in the finals, we know the percentages swing heavily in your favor if you do. It matters. I wouldn't say it's certainly the least important race of all of the races that we're talking about, because it's not changing their matchups in the first round or even the second or third. That's going to be determined by all these other teams. But if both of these teams ultimately get to where they want to be, that's when it comes into play. And it will matter who gets home court advantage.
That's my favorite part of all this. It doesn't matter until it matters, right?
Yeah.
It being healthy matters more. And so you see them sitting out Chet and J-Dub. You see Cleveland in that losing streak. We didn't mention this. Donovan Mitchell missed a bunch of those games. He came back and he's still kind of recovering from his own injury woes. So getting healthy for the playoffs is far more important. Having said that, if we're playing a game 7 at Paycom as opposed to Rocket Mortgage or whatever it's called, like someone's going to point to this stretch in time in March. Like, see, I told you it would matter. I told you it would mean something. So it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. Do you go hard and go for it, or do you say it doesn't matter?
And Oklahoma City plays the Lakers twice down the stretch here. I think they're both home games. So they're going to be contributing to that race as well. That's another really interesting factor here.
Got one more race for you, Jeremy. In the Eastern Conference, a race for 4. Pacers, Bucks, and Pistons, all kind of jostling for position there. The Pacers are currently 4th. Bucks are a game back in 5th. Pistons are 2 games back at 6th. Now, it should bear noting that the first tiebreaker, if it's a 3-way tie, is a divisional record, at which point the Pistons are far behind the other 2 teams. There's also another thing sneakily in there, Jeremy, that the Knicks, who we've kind of like written in Sharpie, shout out to Seth Davis, to be the 3 seed, they've kind of like, they've only got a 3-game lead ahead of the Pacers. And with Brunson injured, it's kind of been up and down. So I guess I should start there. Do you think, should we not worry about the Knicks at 3?
I would. Gosh, it would be a pretty epic collapse if the Knicks ended up not finishing as the 3. When you have a 3-game lead over the Pacers, I would anticipate that they're able to keep that even without Jalen Brunson. To me, it would say a lot about who they are as a team if they're not able to keep it. So that part of the race doesn't really concern me all that much. But when you have a couple of teams in the Pacers and the Bucks and the Pistons here, all within a couple of games of each other, I mean, that's going to change a lot, right? Being right now the 6th seed versus being the 5 or the 4, and
that's
ultimately makes a huge difference to me.
That's where you started this segment with, right? You started with in the West, you really don't control anything. You say, I want to be the highest seed possible, but you have no idea who you're going to play. Whereas in the East, if you're not the 7 or 8, you're in great shape because you don't have to see those buzzsaws of Cleveland or Boston. You see the Knicks, they've got like a soft underbelly, like, I think I can handle this. And so, being 6 matters, being 4 or 5 matters more because that gets you at least a fighter's shot to get to the second round as opposed to what we're talking about at 6, where you're talking about perhaps a huge upset in the first round. Pacers or Bucks, excuse me. Who do you have?
I got the Bucks. I think they're just the better basketball team. And so to me, if you're within a game here at the end and I've got Giannis and Dame and you're the Pacers, I'm going to go ahead and take Giannis and Dame down the stretch, getting themselves home court advantage.
Let me ratchet it up a little bit more. Of those two, who do you have more confidence in beating either Cleveland or Boston in the 7-game series?
Also Milwaukee. Milwaukee, because they have the best players. Like ultimately in the playoffs, that's what matters, right? Can your stars rise to the occasion? And Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I know you guys have mentioned it here and it's been mentioned elsewhere, like the odd concept of having a quiet, amazing season, being 3rd in the MVP race in a year where statistically he'd win an MVP in so many other seasons. He's been great. Dame has been great. To me, that's the team. Again, if I'm Cleveland or I'm Boston, I'm doing everything I can to avoid Milwaukee in the second round, and they can't really control that at this point. They're both locked in where they are.
Producer Hank, it's funny, he said this last week, Bucks fans have to be the saddest. And I said, wait, more than the Sixers, more than the Mavs? And he said, yes, because the Sixers and Mavs have like things to point to, like injuries and this horrible trade. The Bucks, like, you're healthy, your roster's great. Like, what's your excuse? So right. That's and the flip side of that is like, well, they still have the potential to do something crazy. All right, let's take a break. On the other side of this break, we do Jeremy's world, or is it Tache's world? Welcome back to Oddball. Amin Hassan, Jeremy Tache filling in for Izzy Gutierrez. And Jeremy, I want to play a new game, a special edition game with you here. We're going to play It's Tache's World. That's right. The award season is well underway. We're heating up down the stretch in all these races. I'm going to make the case for DraftKings Sportsbook favorites for each award, and then you get to decide who should get it. And we figured because the Heat are terrible, you're as objective of a source as any. Like, there's clearly not going to have any opinions on these that are going to be colored by bias.
Piling on. That's fine. It's fine. I'm a guest here. You say Tache's world. It makes me feel like things are going to go well and everybody's all positive, and then you got to take a shot. But that's all right.
Pull the chair out from under you. All right. First and foremost, we got the MVP race. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's the odds-on favorite, minus 900, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. He's the best player on the best team in the league. And if the Cavs keep losing, that'll be confirmed. He's putting up crazy numbers on both ends, 33 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, a block, almost 2 steals a game on great shooting splits. Or I could give you the statistical anomaly that is Nikola Jokić. He's plus 500 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. He's having maybe the greatest statistical season of all time. He's top 3 in points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game. That's never happened in the history of the NBA. But as we mentioned earlier, the Nuggets are 45-27. They're fighting to be the 2 seed in the conference. Jeremy, who do you like for MVP?
I think Shai will win the MVP. And I think it's deserving, right? Like, you are the best player on the best team, as you just mentioned. And it's not just that, right? It's not like he's averaging, 22, 7, and 4 on the best team as the lead guy. He is statistically overwhelming. He's overwhelming when you watch him play. He's playing a really incredible brand of basketball. The only concern that I have about it is that Nikola Jokić is doing stuff we've never seen on the basketball floor. And I worry that the only reason that we're not giving him an MVP is because we're tired of it. That theoretically, if the Nuggets end up making the run, upsetting Oklahoma City in the postseason, making the run to the finals, that this could all look like the Derrick Rose, LeBron James year all over again of, oh, wait, he was the best guy on the better team and had the great stats. But look who was obviously the best player in the world. Nikola Jokić is the best player in the world. Shai has been incredible, had the best season on the best team. He deserves it. But this is splitting hairs at this point.
This is two generations, because I thought you were going to say Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson, and I realized I'm like 30 years older than you. All right, the real race. Now, look, everyone is going to be unanimous. 1 and 2 is some combo of Shai and Jokić. The real race is for 3, and it's a dead heat between Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Both of them are plus 50,000 to win MVP. Neither of us expect that. But who do you think is going to come in third?
I think Giannis will, and I think he should.
Nope.
Look, I admire Jason Tatum's game and everything that he's done with the Celtics, but when you're the defending champions and you're overwhelming in terms of your talent, and you have, you know, a potential 6th man of the year, and you have all of these other co-stars, to me, what Giannis is doing in Milwaukee, particularly, like, maybe we don't forget here on Oddball, but the start of the season was abysmal for Milwaukee. And when you look at where they've gone since then, if you just took a sample of both of those teams and both of those players from the moment Milwaukee started to turn things around, this probably wouldn't even be a conversation. So to me, Giannis, with the type of basically Shaq season that he's having statistically, should be the clear number 3, although both of them deserve to be praised for the type of
we're not here for your fence sitting. Just say Giannis. Got it.
All right, it's Giannis. It's Giannis. All right, it's Giannis. I'll stop.
All right. Most improved. Nice. This one is huge, because I think voters somehow have lost the plot on what improved means. They're giving it to guys who are just basically doing what we thought they were going to do. Cade Cunningham is the odds-on favorite, minus 225. The Pistons obviously are a lot better than they were last year. Cade's putting up great numbers, but I would argue that Cade was doing that last year too, and the year before that. And then on the other hand, we have Dyson Daniels, plus 160 according to DraftKings Sportsbook. And he's leading the league in steals. He's averaging 3 steals a game. He could be the first player since Chris Paul to secure 200 steals in a single season. Or he could be. He does. He just became it. So who do you think is MIP?
Dyson Daniels for sure. Like, Dyson Daniels 100% between those two. Now, could I have a separate conversation where I say, where is Tyler Hero? Yeah, I could. I would. But the last run of basically the last month, even in my mind, takes him out of it, because he struggled so much in the last month. If he would have kept up what he did in the first half, but that's not who you're asking about. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make this about Tyler Hero. To me, this is a Dyson Daniels award to win, because like you said, Amin, Cade Cunningham has been doing this. This is exactly the type of step that we expected him to take. And I hate that when we take young guys who we know are going to be superstars and then just give them the most improved award, when it's the step that we expected, right? Yep. Dyson Daniels being this dominant defensively is not what anybody expected this season, to take such a drastic step. So to me, this should be a Dyson Daniels win.
Couple other names: Ty Jerome, Ivica Zubac, Norm Powell. Like, there's a lot of people out there, I think, are more deserving in this conversation. But we don't have time, because we got to play Prop-A-Slot. Prop-A-Slot is presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned, because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We've got to figure out whether we're going to take the over or the under. It's going to tell us. If we don't take the pick, we spin it again. If we don't take that pick, we spin it again. If we don't take that pick, we've got to take a parlay of the 3 combined. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, here we go. Run the slot machine. We're up against the clock. Jeremy, I ain't gonna lie to you. We might just have to take whatever it presented. We got Durant under 25.5 points. That's minus 105. I'm not a fan of unders. Let's spin it again.
Let's spin it.
Spin it again. I'm not a fan of unders. I know they're playing the Bucks tonight. I'm going to that game, by the way, right before I fly to Miami. That's Quentin Grimes over 25.5 points, minus 120. Sixers are visiting the Pelicans. What do you think?
Sure, let's take it. Let's take
like it too.
Why not? I love random games like this one.